Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode where we dive into the habits that shape our daily lives. Today, we're talking about night owls, those of us who feel the most alive when the sun goes down.
Yep, if you've ever struggled with waking up early because your brain seems to work better at midnight, this episode is for you. We're breaking down the science behind night owls, the pros and cons, and whether or not you really need to change your sleep schedule.
Exactly, society often glorifies early risers, but let's be real, not everyone functions best in the morning. So, what does that mean for night owls? Is it possible to thrive while sticking to a late night routine, or should you try to adjust?
We're about to find out. Let's get into it.
So, let's start with the basics. Why are some people night owls? Well, it turns out that genetics play a big role. Your chronotype, which is basically your natural sleep-wake cycle, is largely determined by your DNA. Some people are wired to wake up early and be productive in the morning, while others feel most alert and creative at night.
Yeah, and it's not just personal preference, it's biology. Research shows that night owls tend to have a delayed circadian rhythm, meaning their bodies naturally release melatonin later in the evening compared to early risers. This explains why staying up late feels effortless, but waking up early, that's a whole different struggle.
And the interesting part, night owls often show high levels of creativity and problem-solving skills during late hours. There's something about the quiet of the night that sparks new ideas. Ever noticed how some of the best musicians, writers, and artists tend to work late into the night?
Exactly. There's even a study that found night owls score high on tests related to originality and flexible thinking. Maybe it's because the world is quieter, and there are fewer distractions at night, making it easier to focus and enter a deep creative flow.
That makes sense. But, of course, there are challenges too. Most of the world is designed for early risers. School, work, and even social events often start in the morning. That can make life tough for night owls who struggle to function before noon.
Yeah, and it's not just about feeling groggy in the morning. There's actual research showing that night owls who are forced to wake up early might experience something called social jet lag. It's when your internal body clock doesn't match society's schedule, leading to chronic tiredness, stress, and even lower productivity.
That's why so many night owls rely on caffeine to survive the mornings. But forcing yourself to be a morning person when your body isn't wired for it, that can take a toll on your health, both physically and mentally.
Right. And let's talk about sleep quality. Night owls often don't get enough rest, not because they don't want to, but because their schedules don't align with their natural rhythm. If you're staying up until M but have to wake up at M for work, that's a serious sleep deficit over time.
Lack of sleep can lead to all sorts of issues: lower energy levels, trouble concentrating, and even a weakened immune system. And yet, there's still this pressure to wake up early because society sees it as being more productive.
But here's the thing, not everyone needs to be a morning person to be successful. There are plenty of examples of highly accomplished night owls. Think about people like Winston Churchill, who used to work late into the night and sleep in, or famous authors who write their best work after midnight.
Exactly. The key is finding a routine that works for you. If you have flexibility, lean into your strengths as a night owl. Schedule deep work sessions during your peak energy hours, and don't feel guilty for not being the type who thrives at 6 a.m.
And for those who have to wake up early because of work or school, there are ways to make the transition smoother, gradually adjusting your bedtime, limiting screen time before bed, and creating a consistent wind-down routine to help signal to your body that it's time to sleep.
Yep, and even small changes, like getting sunlight in the morning, can help reset your internal clock if you want to shift your schedule. But if being a night owl works for you and your lifestyle, there's no need to force yourself into an early bird routine just because it's what society expects.
At the end of the day, it's about working with your body, not against it. So whether you're a night owl or an early riser, the most important thing is making sure you get enough rest and structure your day in a way that supports your energy levels.
And you know what's interesting? Even though society often favors early risers, night owls have some unique advantages. For example, studies suggest that night owls tend to be more adaptive and resilient in certain situations. Maybe it's because they've had to navigate a world that doesn't always fit their natural rhythm.
That's a good point. And another thing, night owls often develop creative problem-solving skills because they're used to working when most people are asleep. It's like a built-in ability to think differently, which can be an asset in fields like art, music, and even tech startups, where unconventional ideas led to innovation.
And let's not forget, some of the most successful people in history have been night owls. We already mentioned Churchill, but there are so many others: Barack Obama, Mark Zuckerberg, and even Franz Kafka. These are people who embrace their late-night energy instead of trying to fight it.
Yeah, and honestly, being a night owl doesn't mean you're lazy or unproductive. It just means your peak performance happens at a different time than the so-called normal schedule. In fact, some research suggests that night owls might even have slightly higher intelligence scores on average.
I love that you brought that up. It reminds me of how intelligence isn't just about waking up early and grinding all day. It's about knowing when you work best and optimizing your schedule to fit that.
Right. And for people who feel pressured to become morning people, let's be real, it's not always necessary. Sure, if your job or school requires it, you might need to adjust. But forcing yourself to wake up early doesn't automatically make you more productive.
Exactly. Some people wake up at 5 a.m. just to say they do, but they don't actually do anything productive with that time. Meanwhile, a night owl might stay up until 2 a.m., fully locked in, making serious progress on a project.
Yeah, and let's not forget, society is changing. With remote work becoming more common, people now have more control over their schedules. Some companies even recognize that night owls can be just as effective, if not more, when allowed to work during their peak hours.
That's such a good point. And even beyond work, social life is different for night owls too. Have you noticed that a lot of the best conversations happen late at night?
Oh, for sure. There's something about late night talks that just hit different. Maybe it's because the world is quieter and people feel more open to deep conversations. It's like those late night drives where you start talking about life, dreams, and everything in between.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite things about being a night owl. The nighttime feels more personal, like you're in your own little world, free to think, create, and reflect.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why so many creative people prefer working at night. It's not just about the time, it's about the atmosphere, the stillness, the sense of isolation. It helps ideas flow.
So true, but of course, balance is important. If being a night owl starts affecting your health or responsibilities, then it might be worth adjusting things a little.
Agreed. It's not about changing who you are, it's about making your schedule work for you, not against you.
And speaking of balance, one challenge night owls often face is sleep deprivation. If you're staying up late, but still have to wake up early for work or school, that can lead to some serious exhaustion.
Yeah, that's where things get tricky. Because even if you love being a night owl, society still runs on an early bird schedule. It's almost like you have to work twice as hard to get enough rest while still keeping up with daily responsibilities.
Exactly, and sleep isn't something we can just cut corners on. Lack of sleep affects memory, concentration, even mood. Have you ever had those days where you stayed up super late, then the next day you just felt completely out of it?
Oh, all the time. It's like my brain is running on 20% battery, and I can't focus on anything.
Right, and that's why, even for night owls, having a solid nighttime routine is so important. You might stay up late, but if you're intentional about winding down, getting quality sleep, and keeping a somewhat consistent schedule, it makes a huge difference.
That's a good point. I think one of the worst things you can do is be inconsistent with your sleep. Like, if you're going to bed at AM one night and PM the next, your body gets confused, and it's even harder to feel well rested.
Totally. Some sleep experts suggest that even if you're a night owl, you should still try to wake up and sleep around the same time every day. That way, your body gets into a rhythm.
And there are ways to make being a night owl work better for you. For example, dimming the lights an hour before bed, limiting screen time, and having a wind-down routine can all help.
Yep, and speaking of screen time, blue light is a huge problem. We're on our phones, computers, and tablets late at night, and that light tricks our brains into thinking it's still daytime.
Oh yeah, I've definitely experienced that. Like, I'll be scrolling through my phone at AM, and suddenly, I'm wide awake when I should be getting sleepy.
Exactly. That's why things like night mode, blue light filters, Or even just switching to reading a book instead of looking at a screen can help signal to your brain that it's time to sleep.
That makes sense. And another thing, food and caffeine. A lot of night owls drink coffee late at night to stay up, but that can mess with sleep quality too.
Oh, for sure, caffeine can stay in your system for hours. Even if you feel tired, if you've had coffee too late, your body might not actually get into deep sleep.
Yeah, I've learned that the hard way. Now I try to avoid caffeine after the afternoon, even if I'm planning to stay up late.
That's smart, and even food plays a role. Heavy meals before bed can mess with digestion, making it harder to sleep, while lighter snacks like nuts or yogurt can actually help you feel more relaxed.
It's kind of wild how much of a science sleep really is. And it just proves that even if you're a night owl, you still need to take care of your sleep quality.
Exactly, being a night owl isn't a bad thing, but making sure it works for you instead of against you is what really matters.
And you know what's interesting? Some studies suggest that night owls tend to be more creative. There's something about those quiet late night hours that just makes ideas flow.
Oh, totally. I've read that too. It's like the world slows down, distractions disappear, and your brain can finally focus. I've had some of my best ideas late at night when everything is calm.
Same. When everyone else is asleep, it feels like there's this endless space to think, write, or create. No emails, no messages, no interruptions, just you and your thoughts.
Exactly. It's like a secret advantage, but the challenge is balancing that with responsibilities the next day. A lot of night owls struggle with getting enough sleep because the world still expects them to be up early.
Yeah, that's the downside. If you're lucky enough to have a flexible schedule, being a night owl can work really well. But if you have a 9 to 5 job or early classes, it gets tough.
Right, and that's where good habits come in. Like, if you know you're staying up late, you can plan your next day better, maybe set up a to-do list the night before or schedule breaks so you don't burn out.
That's smart. And maybe even small naps during the day. I know some people swear by power naps.
Oh, absolutely. A 20-minute nap in the afternoon can do wonders. It won't replace full sleep, but it helps recharge your brain, especially if you had a late night.
And I think another key thing is making sure the sleep you do get is high quality. Like a dark room, comfortable temperature, maybe white noise if needed, all those little things add up.
Oh, for sure. Even things like your mattress and pillow matter. If your bed isn't comfortable, you're going to wake up feeling sore, even if you got enough hours of sleep.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of night owls don't think about when they sleep, only how long they sleep. But going to bed at AM and waking up at noon isn't the same as sleeping from PM to AM.
Exactly. Our bodies have natural rhythms. And even if you're a night owl, your sleep quality can suffer if your schedule is too inconsistent.
So maybe the real goal isn't to fight being a night owl, but to make it work better with your lifestyle.
Yes, and that might mean setting some boundaries like having a real bedtime, even if it's later than most people's, or making sure you don't binge watch shows until sunrise.
That's the hardest part, honestly. Nighttime is when all the best distractions happen: Netflix, gaming, endless scrolling on social media.
Oh, definitely. That's why being intentional matters. You don't have to force yourself to sleep early, but having limits like setting a no screens after midnight rule can help you get better rest.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess the big takeaway is that being a night owl isn't bad, but you have to be mindful about how you manage it.
Exactly. Finding what works for you, getting quality rest, and making sure your habits actually support your energy levels. That's the real key.
And you know what's interesting? Some of the most famous thinkers, writers, and artists in history were night owls. Like, did you know that Winston Churchill, Charles Darwin, and even Bob Dylan were known for staying up late?
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. It makes sense, though. The night has this quiet magic to it, no distractions, just pure creativity.
Exactly. And for some people, their brains just work better at night. Scientists even say there might be a genetic factor to whether you're a night owl or a morning person. It's not just about habit, it's how your body naturally functions.
That's so interesting. I guess that's why some people physically struggle with waking up early, no matter how much they try.
Yep, but the tricky part is that society is kind of built for morning people. Schools, jobs, and even social events mostly happen during the day. So night owls have to find a way to balance their natural rhythms with those expectations.
Yeah, that's the hard part. I mean, I'd love to sleep in until 10 a.m. every day and work in the evening, but that's not always possible.
Right. That's why some night owls try to shift their schedules gradually. Instead of forcing themselves to wake up at M all of a sudden, they start adjusting by 15 minus 30 minutes earlier each day.
Ooh, that's smart. Kind of like tricking your body into getting used to a new schedule without making it feel like torture.
Exactly. And I've heard that having a strong nighttime routine helps too. Like, even if you don't go to bed early, at least winding down properly dim lights, reading a book, avoiding screens can make a difference.
That makes sense. I've noticed that when I stay up late, but actually relax instead of scrolling on my phone, I wake up feeling way better.
Yep. Blue light from screens messes with your sleep cycle. So if you're a night owl who stares at your phone all night, your sleep quality is gonna be so bad.
Okay, I'll admit it. I'm guilty of that.
Me too. It's just too easy to fall into the rabbit hole of just one more video or just one more episode.
Right. And then suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you're like, wait, what happened?
Exactly. That's why setting limits is so important. Some people use apps to block social media after a certain time, or they put their phones across the room so they're not tempted to keep checking them.
That's a good idea. I might try that. I also heard that exercising earlier in the day can help reset your internal clock, so you're naturally tired earlier at night.
Oh yeah, totally. Movement plays a big role. If you're sitting around all day, your body doesn't really have a reason to feel sleepy at night.
Makes sense, and I guess food matters too, right? Like, eating a big meal late at night can mess up your sleep.
Oh yeah, definitely. Heavy meals, caffeine, even alcohol, those can all affect your sleep cycle. A lot of night owls drink coffee late to stay awake, but then they wonder why they can't sleep properly.
Guilty again. I love my late night coffee.
Haha, I get it. But maybe switching to herbal tea or just drinking water at night could help.
Yeah, I should probably try that. And I guess the key takeaway is that being a night owl isn't a bad thing. You just have to be smart about managing your energy and making sure you still get good rest.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you.
And you know, I feel like a lot of night owls feel guilty about their sleep schedule. Like, people always say, you should wake up early to be productive. But what if you were productive at night?
Yes, that's such a good point. Productivity isn't about when you do things. It's about how you do them. If you're doing your best work at midnight, why should that be a problem?
Right. And with remote work and flexible schedules becoming more common, I think night owls finally have a chance to structure their days in a way that makes sense for them.
Absolutely. Some companies now even allow flexible work hours, where employees can start later in the day. If that trend keeps growing, night owls might not have to fight their natural rhythm so much anymore.
That would be amazing. But I guess for people who don't have that option, small adjustments can still make a difference, like getting some sunlight in the morning to help reset their internal clock, or at least setting a consistent bedtime.
Yep. And even if you're a night owl, sleep quality is everything. You can stay up late, but if you're sleeping at weird hours every night, your body is gonna feel exhausted no matter what.
So true. I think the key takeaway here is, being a night owl isn't bad. It's just about finding a routine that lets you thrive while still fitting into the world's schedule.
Exactly. Whether you're a night owl or a morning person, the goal is the same: get enough sleep, be productive when it makes sense for you, and take care of your health.
Alright, so for all the night owls out there, embrace your late night creativity, but don't forget to take care of yourself.
And if you've got any sleep hacks that work for you, let us know. We'd love to hear them.
That's it for today. See you in the next episode.
Until next time, stay well rested, night owls.
Bye.